All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Uh, uh, a very warm welcome on this Saturday afternoon. I am Raghav, and on behalf of Healthcare Continuum, would like to welcome you today for this session. This is third in series of Healthcare Grandmaster, which is not just an educational series, but rather a bridge where we are trying to connect the forefront of global healthcare insights with sharp minds who will define the future of healthcare in India and beyond. As part of this initiative, our partnership with IIHMR Delhi is very crucial to enrich the scholarly depth, rigor, and expertise with practical know-how of this discussion and ensuring what we learn translate into deep, actionable knowledge and real-world application. So I once again welcome you all and would like give an opportunity to Dr. Pankaj from IIHMR to share a few words.
Great. Thank you, Raghav. Sir, first of all, welcome, and really we are very thankful to you for taking up your time, and it'll be an immense learning experience. I know your experience at Philips, at Nat Health, all this would be much needed and much more helpful for our students, and we're really looking forward to this session. And after this session, I would definitely like to invite you to IIHMR Delhi also, maybe for interaction with our students, and really looking forward. Once again, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Pankaj, and your collaboration is highly valuable here. Without going into further details, I'll add an important top point around Mr. Chhitiz, that as we are diving into this fascinating topic about sickness to sleekness, turnaround therapy, I think Chhitiz sir has lived that, and we'll learn a lot of those insights from this discussion today. We'll explore the innovative strategy and insights on how transforming healthcare operations to enhance both care and institutional efficiency solutions. And we are very privileged to have you, sir. Mr. Chhitiz has been a former vice president of Philips Health Systems and a visionary leader in the healthcare industry, with over 25 plus years of experience spanning across healthcare as well as financial services. Sir has been instrumental in driving growth and operational excellence across the Indian subcontinent. His work in influencing policy, regulatory environments, and deep involvement in strategic healthcare initiatives makes him an excellent speaker for today to guide us through today's topic. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Chhitiz Kumar as he shares his expertise and insights into turning around healthcare operations for the betterment of all. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Raghav, for this very nice introduction. And thanks to the people who took time on a Saturday to join for this session. I know it's a busy Saturday evening, a weekend before the election results gets announced. So might have some family plans, etc. But thanks for joining in the session. I hope that over the next 50 minutes to 60 minutes that we have today, you'll be able to get something out of this session. And before I go there, let me talk a little bit about what we have planned for today. From an agenda perspective, we'll start talking about what the turnaround is. Okay, what differentiates a turnaround from a usual growth that we are typically used to especially in a country like ours. Then we'll talk about a little bit about the framework for turnaround, and at least that framework has helped me in a lot of cases out there. The framework of turnaround actually talks about three elements out there. The first element is about strategy. The second element is about execution. And the third, probably the most important element, is about the leadership and culture. And all these three are very, very crucial as you move into turnaround. And then I'm going to take three case studies. These are all my personal case studies that I've gone through over the last decade or so, talking about how did I achieve a specific turnaround by fixing the strategy element out there, which was the missing link out there. The second case study is about fixing the execution engine. What kind of a situation was there and how do we fix up the execution engine? And the third case study is about the fixing the leadership and culture. Probably after each of these case studies, we can probably have a Q&A. If somebody wants to know a little more about that, how did you go about fixing up the strategy? How did you go about fixing up the execution? And finally, summary of all that stuff, and probably kind of distill my learning experience or encapsulate in my learnings. Okay, that's what I have planned for today afternoon. And once again, thank you for joining in today because I know you had some other time as well to spend with your family, but you chose to be here. Let's make it worthwhile. Okay, let me start by giving first and foremost a global perspective. All of us have heard about this acronym called VUCA.
Yes.
You might be wondering, we have always heard about this VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Why have we added this first D and a last D to that? Because we are living in a D VUCA D world. We are no more living in a VUCA world. What does the first D stand for? The first D stands for disruption. Okay, before I talk about disruption, let me ask you a simple question for the people in this session. In last 6 months, how many of you actually visited a bank branch or even an ATM?
Yeah, a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bank
So,
branch, not honestly, but yes, ATM, yes.
yeah. So I would say like, Rajiv, you'll probably be in a minority out here. Believe me, it took hundreds of years of bank branching because banks used to have that saying, hey, I've got 10,000 branches, I've got 1,000 branches, I serve this city, this town, etc., etc. That got disrupted with ATMs in just about 20 years. Now, 20 years of ATMs have got disrupted by digital online banking in less than 10 years. That's the kind of disruption we are talking about, right? What is the second D in this D VUCA D world stands for? It is about diversity. We are living in a very diverse world, be it in terms of age, be it in terms of gender, be it in terms of sexual preferences. It is a very diverse world, and we have to be extremely sensitive about it. 30 years back, when my father was in his job, he would typically have a manager who would be typically 10 years to 15 years to 20 years senior to him. Typically, it will be a male. In the current world, your manager could actually be much younger than you, or you could be working with somebody who's in 80s and who's still continuing to work. That's the kind of a world that we are living in today. So it's not the normal world that maybe 30 years back we were used to living, especially on the corporate side. That's not what's happening. And I want all of us to be aware of it. That's the kind of a world that we are living in, and that's the kind of disruptive, diverse world will throw up so many turnaround opportunities that as managers and future managers moving forward, we all have to be ready for that. Let me start with asking you a very simple question. And if people can put it in the chat box, please put it in your responses out there. In your view, what percentage of Fortune 500 companies that were listed in the year 2000 are still there in 2023? Option A, 78%. Option B, 64. Option C, 58. And option D, 48.
48.
48. Let's see what is the chat showing up. Rather, what is the chat showing up?
Sir, 48, sir.
48.
48. Some saying 58, but yes, most of us are agreeing on 58,
Okay.
48 region. No one is saying 78. Don't see anything.
No one is saying that 78 of the person.
No, no one is saying even 64. I would be amazed.
Okay. We'll get into the answer in a minute, but let's take the second question. In 1975, life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company was about 75 years, which means that if you were in a Fortune 500 in 75, you would typically be there for the next 75 years. What do you think is the current life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company? It continues to be option A as 75 years. Option B, no, it has reduced to 50 years. Option C, it has reduced to 25 years. Or option D, has it reduced to 15 years? What are the answers coming?
25 and 15. Yunus saying 25. Jagdish saying 15. Hemant saying 15. Manish sir saying 25 years. Shekhar saying 50 years. 25, sir. I think general consensus is 25 years.
General consensus is coming to 25 years?
25 or 15 years.
Okay, so let me give you the answers first. I think the first one, most of the people got it right. 48%. Come to reflect it the other way around, which means that if in year 2000 you were there on the list, there's a higher chance that you are actually out of that list than you are on the list today. Yeah? And let me give you the second shocker.
My
Wow.
God.
Oh,
Yeah, that is the reality. The
My
reality
God.
today is that if you are a Fortune 500 company, your current life expectancy is not more than 15 years. How many of you remember Yahoo?
My God.
oh.
I'm just trying to give you a perspective of which world are we living in. We are living in a world which probably has got a very short life expectancy of the companies and the probability of the company continuing to be on the Fortune 500 or being where you are, which means that you will face those downturns and from uncertain quarters. If not already seeing it, you will see it now. So that was the global perspective. Let's kind of drill it down a little lower and look at, if this is such a common thing, why are the companies not able to react to this VUCA world? If we know all this is happening, why aren't we able to react? And the simple answer, without getting into a lot of jargons, it is the boiling frog trap. A lot of companies are not even sensitive to what's happening into the market and changing their strategy, changing their behaviors of responding to that. They kind of say like, yeah, in some part of the market, some state, some city, some country, if you're a multinational thing, okay, we are facing some challenge out there, but rest of it is going okay, right? You try to deny that in the first go. Saying, hey, in this part of the world, the water is still cold. There might be heat somewhere else, but it's not across the organization. And before you realize it, it is either too late for the frog to really jump out of that hot boiling water or to change the course of this trajectory of this company. And I'm just giving you a simple example. There can be a lot of theory around it. There can a lot of things about it. And I can also tell you about one thing. If you get into a turnaround situation, there is a study by BCG which talks about no more than 25, or in a very lucky scenario, 30% of the companies actually are able to successfully turn. Which means that 70 to 80% of the turnarounds are actually not successful. So even when the frog realizes that it is too hot and you try to change it at that point of time, the company finds it difficult to turn it around. And that's why you see now you correlate with the previous question that I asked about saying like, hey, what's a life expectancy? 15 years. What's your probability that 20 years back you were there on Fortune 500, you're there now, less than half. Now we started with global, we brought it down to company. I'm going to bring it down and make it a little more personal. And I want everyone to have this self-check. What does this D world mean for you today? Whichever organization you're working in, if you're in the Fortune 500, you belong to that 1/3 at random that will not be their market significance after 5 years. That's the kind of a world you're living in. Which means that whichever company you're working in today, if it belongs to Fortune 500, there's a clear 1/3 chance after 5 years, you will not be there. The question is a very obvious one. Do I belong to that 33% or do I belong to the 66%? And I leave it with this trick to really evaluate it. These are the early warning signals that your water is boiling when you're not having higher profitability. Your market share is either declining or is stagnant. Market share decline essentially means that you're not growing at the pace at which the market is growing. Your team morale is down. And the biggest signal for a turnaround situation is when the manager starts talking about saying, hey, I am winning in the addressable market out there, which could be the premium one, which could be on this one or the mid segment, etc., etc. And this is a very easy trap to buy a few years of letting the water boil and get heated up even more. Because you're buying within the corporate life of saying that, hey, overall market looks like, but you know what? My product offering is only on this side, but in that addressable market, I'm still holding on to 30% market share, 20%, whatever is the number you're talking about. And before you realize, somebody else has swallowed you up. So if in the companies, people have already spoken about addressable market share, the start has happened. Okay, and that's one thing I would say, like, hey, if in your organization you're hearing about profitability not growing or it's actually declining, market share declining, team morale, which could be employee engagement scores, etc., that you might have inside, and your overall sense of people that they are not engaged, you are in that boiling water. Okay, it is about change or perish. And I want all of you to kind of take it personally as well, because if in your market, you're already talking about addressable market share, it's time. It's time to look at the market from a different lens. Right? Let me move to the second part of my agenda. So we have established now to a large extent that turnarounds are out here to stay. If you look at studies, 1975, 95% of the companies will continue even after 5 years on the same Fortune 500. Today, we just discussed it, less than about a 1/3 will go away within the 5 years time frame. So when people spoke about our fathers, grandfathers, etc., continuing in the same one job, there was a very good reason, because the companies were stable, the ships were stable on which they were pegging their lives on. Today, it's not the case. You will, in any point of time in your careers, will come around situations of turnarounds. And I'm going to put up a framework for turnaround. So turnaround is basically happening on 3 axes. Strategy. Strategy is about where to play and your right to win. Second is about the execution, which talks about the org structure, the performance management, the processes, including the IT systems are there. You might have an elaborate process, but is it easy to follow? And the overarching theme is about leadership and culture. Are the leaders walking the talk? and who are the people who are getting seat on the table, because that's where the signal to the rest of the organization goes, whom are you valuing or whom you are not valuing, right? So without much further ado, I will move specifically into the case studies. Give me a second. Let me see if this works. And while I'm going through these case studies, I want to leave with this picture of for you to self-reflect. You see four fabulous cricketers on the screen. On the left side of your screen are absolutely world-class players like a Virat Kohli or a Rohit Sharma, right? They come, they have records, they play wonderfully well. On the right side of the screen are the people who are called in at 6 down, or Rashid Khan is called in saying that, hey, we need some wickets, we need to kind of slow down a little bit. The skill set required for Virat and Rohit Sharma and the skill set required to be a Dhoni or a Rashid Khan are very different. And while you go through these three case studies, I think it's also time that you should also introspect, are you more like a Rohit Sharma or a Virat Kohli? Or do you enjoy being a Dhoni, staying calm and composed under pressure, or by a Rashid Khan that your performance pressure actually gets the best out of you? Okay, with this, let me move to the first case study, which is about strategy. Out of the three elements, the first case study I'm going to pick up is on strategy, and I'm going to talk about a real case study which I personally went through that. So around a decade back, we have always heard the healthcare companies talking about we want to be doing consultative selling, we want to be partners with our healthcare customers, we want to be partnering with them. So this word is quite a famous one, saying that, hey, I want to do consultative selling to them. And with this idea came up saying that, hey, we understand healthcare, we understand radiology, our equipments go into radiology, cardiology, ICUs. We can help our customers to get more efficient in their operations. And that will drive consultative selling and move us from being transactional, lumpy sales at the time of being called for an equipment negotiation, etc., to a really value-based selling. So we moved into a customer and say like, hey, we will improve your radiology services by 20%. You give us a share of that. We get you more patient footfall for cardiology. You give us a profit share out there. Okay. Absolutely great idea and an absolutely win-win proposition. From a strategy perspective, I don't think most people will think that it was flawed at all. However, what we realized, at least in India, 3 years, we lost it. We kept on trying through this strategy and saying like, hey, we understand radiology. I do not know why the customer is not paying us for getting their radiology centers more efficient. We understand cardiology. I don't know why they are not doing it. And two business leaders, including one ex-McKinsey friend of ours, they came in to try to run this business, but did not succeed. And you might think like, what was wrong out there? I think the fundamental thing that was not addressed is, and which is probably there in the headlines, healthcare consulting services, when it comes from an OEM, the customer thinks, anyway, I expect you to do that. If you have supplied me an MRI and a CT, it is your job to make me more efficient. Why should I pay you for that? So if you kind of really look back, there was all a tick mark. You understood radiology better than most other people. You knew how to get those machines. You knew how to analyze all the data coming out of that machines, all the analytics out there. And you go back to your customer and say like, hey, now pay me for this. And the customer would tell years back, anyway, this is coming from your machine. This anyway, you're supposed to do it for me. So there was one part of the strategy which was going wrong was customer willing to pay you for that, especially if you are a supplier of those equipments. And we realized it. And after these two business leaders kind of left, it was given to me, and I started off with the customer. And we kept the motto the same, that we can help our customers driving efficiency in their operations, but instead of driving it only through specific departments, we will go and address the greenfield projects. And that will drive consultative selling and move towards from transactional sales to really value-based sales. Most of us know in healthcare, throughout the lifetime of a hospital, only 12% of your cost goes towards the capex. 88% of your cost actually is the operating recurring expenses. All the consumables, all the ACs, electricities, etc., the workforce, manpower is all that gets consumed there. So if you design originally a hospital which is very efficient, you can drive efficiency throughout the lifetime of that hospital. And that's when we started doing hospital infrastructure services, which starts from saying that, hey, I'm going to build up a hospital for you. The configuration of the hospital would look like this. So many cardiology dedicated services, so much this, so much that, etc., etc. We'll help you design from an architectural design, project management, equipment advisory, which also meant that if you have to build up this team, the skill set required would be very, very different from what your original set of people were there. So you went through an entire change from a strategy perspective, saying that instead of designing better radiology centers for you within a hospital or better cardiology services, we are going to work through doing an entire end-to-end services. Within 18 months, we provided end-to-end consulting services at 5 different hospitals, each with 200 plus beds. And the equipment sale that we could actually get once the project got completed was almost 8 to 10 times the consulting fees. Because you got very early engaged, almost 2.5, 3 years before the project got live, you were able to demonstrate and bring in value much before any of your competition could do that. And that's how we changed the whole game. So this was a whole strategy play that we played, and we kind of changed gears to make sure that what was not working for the last 3 years, how do you make it a turnaround? Because the morale was down, because imagine 3 years you've been trying and to make a business vertical come up and running, and it was not working, only to realize it very quickly. Once you go and meet the customer would expect you to anyway to provide you efficiency services. So they're not going to pay you for that. And then you have to kind of say like, hey, if this is not what it's going to pay for, what is the customer willing to pay for? If customer is going to pay for, do I have a right to win in that space? If you have it, then you go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause here before I move into the second element out there. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Please feel free to unmute and ask questions, or just type it in the chat box. Any questions? Sir, I think we can continue.
No, I
Okay.
don't have a comment actually, because I think you started 2016, 17, these services, consulting.
No, the consulting services was actually 2013 to 2015. It did not fly. So 3 years it did not work, as I said in my previous
So
one.
16, 17, you revamped, right? Or rather,
Yes.
yeah, so that's what I've written in the comments also.
Oh, okay.
So it was you. Okay.
Yeah, so yes. So if you're not coming, because my predecessor is a good guy, he's very good, comes from an ex-McKinsey background, etc., etc. All
I came to know about this. Actually, I was keeping a close tab on the market. So I learned from the market. Actually, Philips is planning to do this. I'm sorry, but anyway,
Yeah, no, some of the big hospitals that
yeah.
people know with is KIMS Bhubaneswar. The whole
Mm.
oncology wing was done by us. Royal Guru,
Kim's, yeah.
yeah, Pune is done. There were 3 hospitals in Bangladesh that we did. So quite a few of hospitals that we did. So
Amazing.
it's all in less than 18 months that you could do it. Because we kind of realize that the customer is not willing to pay you for radiology, but they are willing to pay you for
Yeah.
end-to-end service. And they see that, hey, you're going to help them design a hospital which is very efficient. And then you're coming with your right pedigree from a healthcare understanding perspective. Because erstwhile, what would happen is like people will go to a general architecture firm
Yes.
and say like, you build up hotels, can you build up a hospital? Sorry, the hospitals and the hotels are two different ones. And
Yes.
people who are in the technology business understand it very well that 15 years back or 20 years back, there was no PET CT.
Yes.
You would have a cobalt machine at that point of time. Now
True.
you are talking about linear accelerator. So you have to kind of, at the time of design of the hospital itself, you have to keep, okay, what the future technology might look like. And because you're in the healthcare business, you see like at least for the next 8 to 10 years, you can actually design the hospital more efficiently out there.
Right, sir. Thank you.
So that's
Good.
excellent to hear. I think Hemant had a question on chat. Hemant, you want to unmute and ask? I think
So,
question is around.
Kshitij, Dr.
Go ahead, yeah.
Deshmukh here. I was wondering whether you shifted your entire core competence from manufacturing medical equipments to a side branch, which is more of, consulting and erection and commissioning.
Yeah, first and foremost, great to see you, Dr. Deshmukh. Long time we haven't spoken, but so what happens is like main business continues, but as any other business, the vectors of growth, what will bring you the next growth, this was identified as one of the growth areas, saying that how do we get deeper customer relationship? Because usually otherwise what was happening was that your MRI has got a life of 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and there will be a transaction that happened, let's say 5 years back, and then the next CT is required. So it was becoming very transactional and not relationship oriented. To drive more relationship business and to drive next set of growth to really help our customers very well on that area is how we started this business. It never became a, let's say, the main full-fledged one business, because your majority of the business, as I said, like your equipment sale was in each of these hospitals was almost like 8 to 10x of what your consulting fees would look like. Did I answer that, Dr. Deshmukh?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So let's move to the next one, which is a case study on execution engine. Again, from my own personal experience, I'm going to share what is there on this execution engine. Around 10 years back, there was a lot of upsurge on public-private partnerships that was happening. And there were very limited players that were there to kind of come and bid for large-scale radiology PPPs. At that point of time, both Manipal and Philips thought that, hey, why can't we form a joint venture and do this together? You have the clinical piece of it. I understand the equipment piece of it very well. And why can't we create a JV and we hire the entire clinical people, which is radiologists, technicians, receptionists, everything, and we'll bid for statewide PPPs, public-private partnerships, right? And strategy-wise, it looked fine because there were not too many players who were bidding or who had the financial capacity to bid for large statewide PPPs. There were players who were willing to bid for like 1 or 2 centers, putting up another 10 crores, 20 crores kind of a capex. But if it comes down to a statewide, which is, let's say, roughly around in the range of 100 odd crores, not too many players of scale were there. And PPP players were looking for the government was looking for good quality players to come in and bid for those projects. So from a strategy perspective, it kind of tick marked all the places saying that, hey, is there a sweet spot to be there? Are there volumes? Are there money to be made? Is there a partnership which will work? And we ended up winning both Haryana statewide radiology. We run 17 centers there. Jharkhand was another 25 centers. So it kind of worked very, very well from a strategy perspective. But what I'm going to talk to you about is the second element. Because once you start running the business is when you really hit the challenges out there. And the first challenge that came in is that Manipal knew how to run large hospitals. Philips has an understanding of how to install radiology equipments, how to get them up and running efficiently, etc. But anybody on the diagnostics business will tell you that hospital business is a very different timing, and almost patients walk into the hospital with the choice of the doctor and the choice of the facilities out there. Diagnostics business is more like a hunting business that you have to go and on a daily basis kind of get people to your diagnostic centers. So the rhythm and the cadence of a hospital one is very different from what you look in the diagnostics, which I think in the larger scheme of things, and when we were forming the JV, we did not realize it, but we were, I would say, like agile enough to look at and saying like, hey, how do we solve for this? So if you were to put a structure of a Philips or a structure of a Manipal, neither of which would have worked. So we changed the full structure, saying that, hey, how do you change the operating mechanism out here? Which means the cadence, which means that how do you do the reviews? What is the frequency of reviews? How do you incentivize people? Has to be very different from the way you do it in hospitals or you do in an equipment sales. Okay, and that's what was a very quick learning, and we had to kind of put that cluster structure, saying that, hey, what will be the empowerment level out there? Because in diagnostics, it cannot be saying that, hey, I need to give a 500 rupees discount. It goes all the way up to the CEO. It cannot. Then the CEOs will be daily doing only this kind of a role. And that's why we had to evolve it very quickly, saying that what is the kind of incentive plan? How do we drive this profitability? I'm glad that we could do this very quickly and be efficiently. Some of you know that the Philips in 2019 exited out of this business. We sold off our stakes to Morgan Stanley Private Equity, and we made a very successful exit out of that. But this was again what started off as saying that strategically it looks beautiful. Two very reputed players coming in and solving for the PPP problem. Strategy-wise, perfect. Operational-wise, there were challenges because when you start running the business, challenges starts coming in. And we were able to solve this very quickly in terms of like how do we put the org structure, the incentive plan, the processes around it very quickly around that. I'm going to pause here if there are any questions on this.
Any questions? Feel free to type in. Sir, I do have a question here that you moved from a centralized to a bit more decentralized autonomous thing. How did you manage to control the quality and the trust building of the services? Because at times when it's centralized, there is that single brand identity, single team, same process is being followed. But in decentralized, things can become chaos as well. So how did you manage that?
No, a great question, Raghav. And that's one of the challenges that you'll find that even the franchisee model of McDonald's finds it, or for that matter, anybody trying to expand beyond 4 or 5 centers gets into a challenge. And the trick lies in standardization. So for example, like one of the incentives for doing this was to standardize and get a NABH, which is in case of radiology center is NABMIS accreditation done. So the moment you kind of standardize those processes, that became quite, let's say, standardized across. So, and then of course, the second part of that element is about transfer of talent. So if you have one center which is doing well and is getting stable, you kind of create a career path for that center manager and say like, hey, why don't you go and fix this next center which has got a challenge out there, right? So it worked on both the sides, in that how do you kind of share the best practices, how do you scale it up, uh, and then of course a lot of things that we have to work on the leadership and culture building for this whole organization, saying that how does the look and feel looks the same, uh, so that when the customer A enters the center 1 and the customer B enters center B, they are getting the same feel. You cannot have a different feel out there. So there is a lot of process standardization and of course a lot of training that you have to put in out there.
Totally, sir. I'll just see anyone else, any questions, any thoughts, Manish sir.
No, sir. Thank you. Good insights.
Okay, let me go to the third case study and the final one for today before I distill down my learnings out of running some of these turnarounds. Again, the third one is about the digital pathology business. And after the 2 success cases that I showed, this is the one which I would say like there were learnings out there for me. So Philips actually launched the world's first digital scanner in the world. And this innovation actually revolutionized the histopathology forever. So some of you might be aware that in histopathology, you take a tissue, you do create slides, some 30, 40, 50 slides out of that, you create a box, then the pathologist will look through that after staining it, etc., etc. And all this got digitized with the Philips scanner, and they were the first one to get it. So if you look at from a strategy perspective of going and targeting large hospitals, large diagnostic chains, which anyway were our customer, it made a lot of sense, saying that, hey, we are going with the same set of customers. We are just selling an additional services beyond radiology on the pathology side. And the result was that the first mover advantage, 60% of the digital labs in India were actually on Philips. Right? So you got your strategy right, you got your execution getting right, you are able to get into the customer, make that impact. However, what happened was after a few years is that there was a leadership change at the global level, the priorities changed. And with that follow through, what happens is that the focus of the management team at the country level also changes. And I was at the country level. I think I'll hold myself accountable for saying that, hey, once you did not see so much of emphasis or impetus coming from the global side onto this business, we also let it go. And a result of that was a drop in the market significance of digital pathology in the overall portfolio. If it came down to really choosing between an MRI deal or a digital pathology deal, I knew where my priorities lied. So I would say like that was in hindsight. Of course, I can look at it and say like, hey, I could have done probably a better job out there. The second part of it, from a result perspective, is once this kind of a thing happens, the culture of growth and risk taking takes a back foot. Saying that, hey, we wanted to take this growth engine and make it big, which is digital pathology, and kind of add on more services out there, more products out there. That culture gets a little bit of impact as well. So this was again one of the learnings that I had. Like maybe at the India level, I could have done differently. I could have probably continued in a different path and continued in the success that was there. Hopefully, is out there. So sometimes it does happen that Dhoni hits 110-meter six, and the next ball it gets out. So this was my ball out where I think I could have done a better job. But these are the learnings that I have. If there anything specific on this case, I'm happy to take it up. Otherwise, I'll move into the last section about overall journey and
I have a question here.
Yeah.
So why there was such a disconnect between the global and the local team? Because data, I mean, company being data equipped and good analytics in place. Now, for example, you take a case of Uber and all. That the way this gentleman is, they had the similar problem, I think, some local, global, and kind of thing. So why do these disconnect happen? In international business?
Yeah. So I'll give you an answer which probably should help you understand. So what happens is like in most organizations, we talk about structure, which is physics. This person reporting to this person reporting to this. But in any large organization, for that matter, anywhere else, even in the bureaucracy, even in your personal relationships, there is physics and there is chemistry.
Oh.
Right? And even when the new leader comes in and you do not get the same chemistry, even though the physics might have remained the same, the chemistry is not there. You kind of over a period of time lose it out.
True.
And that to me, at least when I look back, is the reason why I could sing like nothing much changes. It's a global leadership changes, which will happen. Any large organization will have those changes. But is it the physics which has changed? Is the reporting lines that have changed? No, that's not changed. It's just that the person and the individual connect that has changed. And that kind of explains a little bit of a drop in terms of your own focus and saying like, hey, and then you kind of justify it by saying that, hey, I've got a 98% of my business, which is outside digital pathology. I'm going to make it up for that 2% loss from somewhere else.
Another question I've got, how important, how effective is a personality cult in corporates?
That would require a full session, and I'm happy to do that. But
anyway,
for this short question, I'll not give you a long answer. Maybe extremely important. Extremely important, both on the positive sides and the negative side. Right. So, and given the fact that we are living in a digital world, it makes a hell lot of a difference.
Yes.
It makes a hell lot of a difference. When Cristiano Ronaldo goes for a press conference, without speaking a word, he keeps the Coke bottle aside and picks up water bottle. 2 billion market cap drop in one single day. Without uttering one single word.
Yes.
And you can imagine what will go through the minds of large corporate honchos when they speak about it. It does make a difference. I can also talk about a very recent case that's going on right now. We are all aware of Boeing.
Yes.
Boeing is going through its own challenges. Its market cap is already down by 50% over the last 3 years or so.
I'm aware about the developments.
Yeah, so there are a lot of safety concerns. FAA is taking a stand against them, etc., etc. All those stuff is going on. So, and that the CEO is of course leaving the company in another few months, but has been at the helm of affairs for over a decade. Is there a long shadow of the tall leader? The answer is yes. So, whether we like it or we don't like it, there is a long shadow of all these tall leaders. Even when they are...
I'm privy to an organization, a big corporate actually, and somehow because of this personality cult, it destroyed the whole company.
Yeah.
So a good company, good growth,
Correct. So as I said, like there is the pluses and the minuses. The pluses is like if you get it out there as a good one, you do it very well. And sometimes the pluses becomes a minus as well.
True.
Right?
Yes, sir.
There are so many companies that rose to almost like a meteoric rise. And the founder or the promoter, the original leader itself becomes detrimental for the growth.
True.
So it's not a straight answer, and then we can probably chat more about it, Manish, with short answer.
Thank you so much. Quite insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's begin. Sorry, is there any more questions, Raghav?
No, I was just asking audience any questions, but I think we can continue.
Okay. So let me distill all my learnings of these turnarounds, and I could list only three of them. Paucity of time, there are quite a few of them that I've been privy to. I've been personally involved in quite a few of them, including some of them outside India as well. But if you ask me, especially for people on the call, I would say like if you're thinking about it, ask yourself, do you relish being Dhoni or Rohit Sharma? What gives you a high? Scoring a century, or and that's not an easy job either, right? Or coming six down and then expected to make 30 odd runs in just 10 balls left and all this stuff. It's a different kind of pressure in both the situation, but ask yourself, what do you enjoy doing more? Second, if you happen to get into the turnaround situation, always start with the market, customer, industry that you are in, and then work backwards. I can again go back to the same case of consulting business. Consulting business was a great business. We said like we understood radiology, we understood cardiology, everything we have, without understanding the customer and the market is not paying you for that, right? So start with the customer. What are they going to pay you for? What value do they see? And then work inwards in terms of organization, capabilities, where do you have, what kind of resources does it need, what kind of funding that will be required, etc. So always start from the customer externally. And this is for all the leaders. Next to our, actually from your leadership perspective, one thing that turnarounds will not give you is the luxury of time and a lot of data points. So you will have to depend upon your intrinsic ability to take decisions. The quality of decisions will depend upon how willing and able are you to listen carefully. So listen without judgment or any bias. Because imagine you've got into a turnaround situation where the morale is low. It is not unheard of people kind of bickering and talking bad about this department, that person, this person, and you start going and talk to that person and somebody else is talking about it, etc. But you also need to understand where it is coming from. It's difficult, but it's a very essential part of being in turnarounds. Because you could end up taking a wrong decision, which anyway, otherwise also you could end up taking up, but at least you are less prone to, if you are listening into all the parties without any judgment or any personal biases that you might carry. Time is of essence. Turnarounds, you're already kind of in a sinking ship. So try to connect the dots, but don't seek perfection. Don't seek like, hey, I need to take 90% plus data and only then I can take decision. Unfortunately, the turnarounds do not give you that privilege. You'll have to play a little bit of shots out there, which might go from an edge or something like that. So be it. I have to play with that game. I have to play that game. Again, more from a personal advice perspective, turnarounds are mentally, physically very exhausting. I've been doing Rohit Sharma job as well, and I've done Dhoni's job as well. So I can tell you, at least I feel turnarounds take much more out of you because you're in a tough spot. And at that point of time, you need to have in inner circle of advisors um, industry folks, sponsors within the organization, because advisor and industry folks can tell you what can happen out there from a solution perspective. You also need a sponsor within the organization which can tell you, hey, this is the proposed solution. Can I do it within this organization or not? So you need to kind of manage it very well. And these are the people who are also your sounding board. Because at times turnarounds could be quite lonely. It is an exhausting job. As much as we think Dhoni enjoys hitting those sixes, ask Dhoni how frustrated it feels that so close yet so far. Right? And the final one is that in the end, it's business, it's a game. You win some, you lose some, but enjoy the game and keep your learning on. I'm going to pause there. If there are any questions, and I'm happy to take it up.
Definitely, sir. I'll request audience to ask question, but I really resonated with all the comments, but especially love the last one. It's a game. Keep on enjoying and playing and getting better. I'll request audience to share any questions, thoughts, comments. Dr. Rajiv Chebbar has expressed his thanks for the excellent session and great learnings for him. He has to drop 5 minutes back because of appointment, but he really cherished the session. The one question I would start is, like we talked about big corporates, big 500, Fortune 500. How does the disruption and these changes play out in beyond 500, let's say mid-size, growing companies, and especially when you are trying to make a turnaround and not having that chemistry, how do you find the people of that chemistry around you?
Yeah. So I would say like Raghav, chemistry is important and it is little undervalued because in a large corporations, we think that we put the structure, the org structure, and it will take care of it.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of Fortune 500s, a new CEO comes in, within 6 months, you'll have a new org structure. Or we are going to slice it like this, I was slicing it like this, I was slicing it like this, and I'm going to make this, etc., etc. Right? And that's a very inward way of looking at it. Right? I would say like the starting point, whether you're a Fortune 500 or not a Fortune 500 is, are you adding value to your customer and market, and are they willing to give you that value? That's a starting point. Okay. If the answer to that is yes, then strategically you have tick marks saying that, hey, this is working. This is I'm in the right space out there. Okay. The second part of that is to get about yourself organized internally, which is about the chemistry part of it. There are a lot of things that we can talk about it, like how do you build up a team spirit, how do you build up, especially at the senior management level. More organization.
Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, no, Manish, I would just want to add that more organizations face is the ego tussle between the top few leaders.
Yes.
It is
Totally.
nothing beyond that. Nothing beyond that. And everybody has got a viewpoint out there and saying like, I have spent so many years in this company, so I have a viewpoint, I have a viewpoint. Yes, you have a viewpoint, but there's a viewpoint from somebody else also, and your ability to kind of pause and reflect and listen into that person, and you might still be able to find a common ground. And that's very, very crucial. And that brings me back to the chemistry. Chemistry is probably, in my viewpoint, more important than the physics itself. You could have a log structure which might not be working so well, but if you have got a good chemistry, you can probably make things happen. More so in the markets that we operate in, which is India, for example, like relationship driven. So there's so many things that you pick up a phone and talk to them, right? While quite a few things, if you talk to the bureaucrats and all, they'll say like, hey, I can't do it. But they'll suggest a way how to get it done. So short answer, focus on the chemistry as much as we focus on the org design structure, and we pay a lot of money to the consultants to come and do this org design structure or organization wide. But I think the chemistry part of it gets missed in this whole process.
Another question I got, I don't know, probably you've seen the things from a very close quarter. How prudent, how strategy is to change the setting when you take over?
Sorry, Manish, didn't get
I
it.
said how important or how strategic is, to change the setting, current setting, when you take over, how important is this? I mean, should we, maintain the status quo for a couple of months, a gradual transition? Because you have a lot of stakeholders and all, and what you rightly said, there's a lot of ego play around.
Yeah. So, depending upon the industry you are in, you might want to do a strategic review at least twice a year. Okay. And in some of the companies, I know it is longer period. It's probably 2 years is what people were used to. When I started on my career 25 years back, there was always this 5-year plan and a 10-year vision plan, right? In the last 10 years, I haven't seen any plan that has gone beyond 3 years, right? So I would say, like, from a strategy perspective, at least depending upon which organization are you looking at, what is the kind of a shifts that you see in this market, you might want to keep it no more than 6 months from a strategic review perspective. And that should not be about discussing the past performance. I just want to be clear.
Very true.
A lot of
Very
people
true.
do this business reviews every 6 months. That's not
Yes.
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a real deep dive in saying, like, are we in the right place, in the right businesses? Are we growing out there? If not, what is stopping us? What are the adjacencies that we can look at? What are the market opportunities throwing up? What do we kind of plan to do that? And I can give you a real example. I spoke about PPP, right? Manipal and Phillips. It was in one of those review sessions saying that, hey, this is the challenge of PPP. When the statewide public-private partnerships are coming up, we don't have a vehicle to go and do that. We have to depend upon 1 or 2 players at best to be able to do that. Why can't we create a solid vehicle to be able to do that? And as an outcome of that was this whole thing that we saw out there.
True. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think
Always.
Dr. Deshmukh has.
Hello.
Hello, Sahil. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. Chhitiz sir, I want to ask from you that I'm just going to pursue an MBA degree in healthcare and hospital management, and I want your advice that what path I should follow to excel in the healthcare industry.
I'll have to give you a 3 idiots advice. Yeah. Sahil, जो
Yes, sir.
को अच्छा लगेगा. You understand Hindi, right? I'm giving.
Yes, sir.
जो दिल को अच्छा लगे ना, वो करना है.
Sir, actually,
So, Sahil, all I'm saying is, जो 3 idiots में बोला था ना, वही चीज मैं भी बोलूंगा.
yes, sir. Now you're audible. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, सचिन तेंदुलकर को गाना नहीं गाने का है और लता मंगेशकर को बैटिंग नहीं करनी है.
Yes, sir. Yes,
तो
sir.
रोहित शर्मा अपनी जगह पे अच्छा प्लेयर है, धोनी अपनी जगह पे अच्छा प्लेयर है. What you have to find out, Sahil, and it takes a little bit of time, and it's not like the answer is obvious. Sometimes you get into a job and you realize I'm not enjoying it. And then you kind of get deeper out there saying, I am not enjoying it. What do I like to intrinsically enjoy?
Yes, sir.
What are the things that you enjoy doing? Do you like to do this? Do you like to get deeper out there? And then probably you need to find out for yourself. This
Yes,
is
sir.
what I enjoy doing.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions? I think Dr. Deshmukh, you had a question around learning goddess. You want to unmute and share? Dr. Deshmukh, can you hear us?
Yeah, Chhitiz.
Yes, Dr. Dev.
Any learnings from Cordis, Johnson and Johnson?
Yeah. So Dr. Deshmukh knows me from 20 years plus while I was in J&J. Most of my examples are of the last 10 years. I think one of the biggest learnings that at that point of time was the chemistry and the aligned vision. And I can talk about it in this platform as well. 97, 98, that time frame, entire Asia Pacific Johnson Johnson was just about 300 million business. And we had taken an ambitious target to become a billion company in just about 6 years. So imagine 3x growth in 6 years with all the premium products, all the stuff that is happening, etc., etc. We did not have all the answers at the beginning out there. But what we did have is a absolutely charged team saying that as a full region of Asia Pacific, we will go for it. We might not have all the answers, but we will still go for it. And no surprises out there, Dr. Deshmukh. We actually got that. It was all because of the belief in the leader and the belief thing that in ourselves, which inspired each one of us saying that, hey, we can get there. We might not have all the answers today, but we will get there. And that goes back again, Manish, to the same thing. Yeah. If you believe you have that chemistry with the leader and you make it happen. I'm talking in the healthcare event and I'm talking about only physics, chemistry, no biology so far.
Totally. I'll just put a final call if any questions are. I've been checking LinkedIn live. There've been comments around great insight. Thanks for sharing. I haven't seen any questions. So even on LinkedIn live, anyone has any question, please feel free to ask. Anyone in the
Actually, he has left us speechless.
yeah, everyone is now self-contemplating around physics and chemistry. And
Yeah, this is Murthy here.
Hi, Murthy.
Yeah, my camera is off, sorry. Sir, one question, sir. In this dynamic world, what should come first, speed or process? Because whenever we take up an assignment, they want it urgently. But sometimes we get confused. What is important, speed or process? What comes first?
Okay, I'll give you when you are starting up, you will have to thrive on speed. But if you want to scale up, speed alone won't take you. You will need to, if you have to deliver with speed each and every time, you will have to depend on process. Because if I'm starting a business, I can probably hire 5 delivery boys and be able to give that speed, right? But if I'm going to open a chain of 30, 40, 50, without processes, I cannot maintain that consistency. The processes will take precedence at that point of time because if you want to scale up. So original one, you can win through speed. But if you want to scale, it will have to be process. Does it answer you, Musi?
Yeah. Actually, because when we work with people, they're very impatient actually. So, so this is sometimes we get always stuck with this question: what is important, speed or process? And but I got the point what you said. Thank you, sir. Nice.
Yeah. Because you also don't want to burn it out, Musi, because if you don't have a, so for example, like if you're able to deliver speed with a set of 4 people, 5 people, right, today,
Mm.
over a period of time, if your organization is known for speed and if you do not have a process, your 2 or 3 people, God forbid, leave you or have fallen sick or something or the other, you're not able to maintain that. So you need to have that backup plan of saying that, hey, this is a process. This is what happens if there's a fallback mechanism like this, because, and that's called the business continuity planning.
Okay. Good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, thanks a lot for sharing such insightful stories and a lot of learnings. I'm sure everyone is contemplating within themselves. I'll just request Dr. Pankaj to share a few words, make reflection, and
As Manish sir was saying, there's a lot of contemplation now going on. A lot of these things are counterintuitive. If we think about it, then it's kind of counterintuitive. That we do seek perfection. And here you are, one who was saying that don't seek perfection. Right? So I think it will take some time for all this to settle in, and probably we will definitely come back to you with a lot of questions on this. But once again, I would like to thank you for your time and for being here. And I would like to invite you, sir, if you are available, maybe we can connect on the sidelines to IIHMR Delhi. And there are students here who will be joining us, who will be actually going through MBA healthcare management. And I really like that answer also, the three idiots one. Yeah, it's really what you enjoy. I think that is what is more important. And so it was lovely being here. Really a great session, and thank you from our side, sir. And we would really like to invite you to HMR Delhi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Thank you, Manish.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed, I think all of us, a lot of insights. And I'm sure like they would carry on, we would keep thinking about all those, whatever we heard and seen here. I think it's going to be a, what do you call, a good learning and for at least a couple of days. And, so thank you so much, Chhitiz sir. It was in fact, I mean, that's how we started actually from from the sidelines of a conference. And so thank you once again. And Raghav, before we leave, and can we have the next master class, Grandmaster session?
sure, sir. Let me just-
So
We
Chhitiz
have the
sir,
next.
this is the next one.
Very nice.
This is Captain Anup has done it. He's got a hands-on experience, and he's got a lot of medical devices, especially the catheters of all kinds. So he's come out with a quality and price better than Chinese ones. So we thought like we should be able to what do you call democratize his story, because we have this kind of Chinese phobia. We cannot
Yeah.
match the cost and all. So this is the next one.
Excellent.
They are based out of Hyderabad. So we'll keep connecting.
Absolutely.
आपको ऐसे जाने नहीं देंगे हम, हाँ? There are a lot of things actually we can collaborate in future. And you are an asset to healthcare, and we value a lot.
Thank you, Manish. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Thanks, Raghav.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'm seeing a lot of thanks on the chat as well. Thanks everyone for joining, and
Thank you,
hope
everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.